What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, and as usual, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video, where today we're going to be talking about a brand new film coming from 20th Century Fox that I got to check out just a little bit early, and that film is called Ella McCay. Written and directed by James L. Brooks, this film stars people like Ella McCay, Albert Brooks, Woody Harrelson, Jamie Lee Curtis, and more. And going into this film, I had seen the trailer a few times, not too many times, but just enough times to know that it seemed like it was going to be a charming, good time, but nothing that looked like it was going to be absolutely amazing, but it looked like it had some heart to it. So with all that said, as usual, let's get into what the film is all about first, and then we'll get into my thoughts on it. Ella McCay follows a young, idealistic political aide who suddenly finds her life upended when her boss and longtime mentor, Governor Bill, is tapped for a powerful federal cabinet position. As Ella is pushed towards taking over his job, she has to learn in real time what it means to be the face of a state in crisis. Juggling late-night strategy sessions, public scandals, and impossible compromises, Ella tries to figure out whether she can keep her ideals intact while stepping into real power, and whether the people who know her best will let her grow into the job without tearing her down in the process. And this is a film that I think in a lot of ways has a lot of heart at times. There is an endearing, very earnest charm to the film in a lot of ways, but unfortunately I walked away from this film thinking that it was a mess, and it's probably one of my least favorite films that I've seen this year. While I don't think that the film is outright terrible, it is the kind of film that I feel doesn't really know what it's trying to be. It has a lot of story elements and human elements in the film that I think a lot of people can relate to, but I'd be lying to you if I said that the film really does anything with those things, instead of just saying here are the elements in the film, but they're not really put together in the right way. It's like they took all the ingredients that you need for a meal and put them on a plate, but nobody prepared them to actually make the meal that you needed those ingredients for. And that's pretty much how I felt walking away from Ella McCay. At the center, you have this very endearing, charming, sometimes annoying, but very likable character played by Ella McCay, which I do think is interesting that it's called Ella McCay, but then you have Ella Mackey. I thought that was cool. But anyway, you have this very likable, charming character at the center of it who does have a lot of great ideals. And in general, it's a story about a woman becoming a governor who wants to help the little guy. She wants to help the hospital. She wants to help teacher funding, things that I think most people would agree with. And you know, I wish I could say this is the kind of film that is about a woman who becomes a governor and has to deal with adversity and obstacles, but pushes through to really enact change. But ultimately, it really isn't about that, as the film only really chronicles about 3 or 4 days of her being governor. And for the most part, things don't necessarily go great because there's all these other story beats that the film is focusing on that ultimately are just as undercooked as the governor storyline. Outside of that, she's dealing with the fact that she's now reconnected with her father, who she hasn't seen in 13 years due to him cheating on their mother, and the fact that she had a falling out with her father. So you have Woody Harrelson in the film, who's a fantastic actor, and I think gives a solid performance here, but the writing does nothing with him because most of the scenes between the two of them are him trying to prove to her that he's changed, only for the film to consistently show that he has not changed. And so maybe there's some sort of underlying subliminal messaging there, but as far as character growth, as far as like these scenes really having an impact, they all fall pretty flat and feel incredibly redundant over the course of the film, leaving this father and daughter estranged relationship as just kind of like this weird, why is this even in the movie? Outside of that, we're also seeing her deal with a relationship issue with her own husband, and the film does some flashbacks to really connect us to that relationship, only for us to find ourselves in a place where he now kind of is struggling with the power dynamic of her being a governor and him not really knowing what his role in her life needs to be. It's just this weird random husband story plot that's in the film that I would be lying if I said really had any real meat to it. It's so generic, it's so paper thin, and the performances around the romance in general are pretty lackluster. And then you have Spike Fearn as Casey, the brother to Ella McCay, who we learn has also kind of become estranged. He's off on his own. He's working indoors, kind of got like depression and anxiety, and he's not really doing much with his life. And so Ella hasn't heard from him in a while. So there's this big portion of her reconnecting with him and kind of peeling the layers of his character. And the character of Casey at times was kind of like quirky and weird and funny, but at other times just felt over the top, very overacted. And I felt most of the dialogue and performance around him just came off cringe and oftentimes felt like he was in a completely different film. And then there's this whole romantic element of the film that includes him and Edebiri, who is ultimately just kind of a throwaway character here. The romantic element here has no real weight in the story whatsoever. And Ayo Edebiri is really in only one scene in the film, like one genuine scene. And so there's so many little things, so many little story threads, so many little human elements in this film that could have made for an interesting family drama with this political overhead, but ultimately kind of amounts to nothing by the time you get to the latter part of the film, and left me kind of shrugging my shoulders, wondering why this film even was. What was this film even trying to be? I would say the most charming parts of this film, without a doubt, are Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays Helen, the aunt to Ella McCay, who kind of takes her on at a young age. And so I thought their dynamic was without a doubt the most charming. I think had the film been this, niece and aunt storyline, I think it would have been a substantially better film. Jamie Lee Curtis feels like the only actress in this film, or the only actor in general, who is elevating the material off of the page. She is playing this very charming, endearing, loving aunt who's very truthful and honest, but also is somebody that our main character Ella can be vulnerable with. And so I found the best parts of this film are when the two of them are together, but there really isn't much there either. Like when you look at the overall story, while those are the best moments, it doesn't save the film because Helen is more of a supporting character to actually emotionally support our character, but less so as a supporting character to really drive the story, which ultimately is constantly meandering and never really has any sort of focus. And outside of Jamie Lee Curtis, the only other ones that are doing some heavy lifting, even though they also don't really have much to do in the film, is you have Julie Kavner as the character of Estelle, who plays like an assistant, kind of receptionist to Ella McCay in the film. Of course, she is the actress who plays Marge in The Simpsons. So it was great to see her in this movie. Her voice is so recognizable, and I think she's given some of the funnier parts of this movie, but there isn't much to her character. She's just kind of a fun, silly side character, but there isn't much to her beyond that. I did enjoy seeing her here. I won't lie. I thought that, overall, when I looked at the cast, it was part of what intrigued me about this film. But I think part of the frustrating part of walking out of a film like this is seeing like good actors doing a good job in a film that isn't really elevating them, and they're trying their best to elevate the material in a fairly forgettable film. And then you have Kumail Nanjiani, who plays a police officer who's part of the security detail of Ella McCay, another character, charming, endearing, has some heart to him, but there isn't much to him other than just the fact that he is loyal to Ella McCay, and there are some charming moments between the two of them. So all this to say, you have all these different characters, all these different human story beats, and they're all being played by competent, very solid actors who are trying their best here. But it's just the way that the film is paced. It's the way that it's edited. It's the fact that on the page and just as a screenplay, these storylines and these characters and these relationships just don't work. And it just led to a finale that just felt like so anticlimactic, so bland, so boring. I kept hoping that things were going to start to pick up, but then I realized, oh, we're in the final moments of the film. Like, we're about to run credits, and I can genuinely tell you that I don't know what this film was trying to be. Was it trying to be a daughter-father, estranged relationship reconnecting kind of thing? No, they don't commit to that. Was it trying to be this sister-brother, kind of the sister helps the brother go after the girl he lost kind of storyline? Kind of, but it's not really something that's a central focus. Is it about this woman becoming governor who tries to really enact change and overcomes adversity to do just that? No, it honestly something that feels like more of an afterthought that has consequences, less so than something that's really panning out. So all in all, this was kind of a frustrating watch because I could see the potential. The cast is great, there is an earnest charm to it, but it never goes anywhere, and it leaves you as an audience member just watching the film going, what was this? I would honestly say that there are better written films in the Hallmark or TLC department than this film is. At least with those films, there's usually a through line. Are they predictable? Are they generic? Have we seen the same movie a million times on Hallmark? Absolutely. But you can usually see the through line. There's usually a story that is at least taking place that has a beginning, middle, and end. And this one just has so many different story threads that there's no real beginning, middle, and end to any of them. So yeah, guys, this was a film that I would genuinely say you should kind of steer clear of. I don't think it's worth your time rushing the theaters to see it, especially in this holiday season with big movies coming out in theaters in the coming weeks and already having bigger movies in theaters right now, like Wicked for Good, Zootopia 2. We're about to get things like the new SpongeBob movie soon. We're also going to be getting things like, of course, Avatar Fire and Ash, which I have already seen, and the review for that is coming next week as of dropping this review. You also have, things like Marty Supreme coming out. There's so many good movies that are coming out in the holiday season that But throwing Ella McCay out here, I honestly think this film would have had a better shot just releasing somewhere in January or February, where it's kind of weaker months for movies, where this would have felt like it fit in that world. Whereas this one's coming out alongside a lot of bigger IPs and just bigger, better competition that I just don't even know what the release strategy was here. It almost feels like they just kind of wanted to throw this out and let it kind of get lost in the shuffle of big releases. And after seeing the product, I guess I can understand why. But anyway, that's going to be my thoughts on Ella McCay. Leave some comments down below. Have you guys seen this movie? Are you planning on checking it out? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.